I'm Chef Kelly York, and this is Therapeutic Cuisine. I specialize in designing recipes that target and alleviate various common human health conditions. Today we're going to talk about coronary heart disease and heart health. This is a subject that is near and dear to me. My family has been plagued with coronary heart disease for many generations. It's the #1 type of heart disease in the country since the 1900s. How do you treat it? You treat it by modifying your habits, good habits. Eating right, getting exercise, staying away from extra stress. My first recipe today is going to be Lou's Granola. Lou's Granola was a recipe I developed when a friend of mine came to me and asked, is there a way to make granola less inflammatory? And here we start off with how to do that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take rolled oats and put them into a very large bowl. I'm making a half a batch. This is usually a much bigger batch. Oats are a wonderful grain. They are high in fiber and they have a lot of soluble fiber. They're also high in potassium. And potassium really does help bring down your inflammation levels and helps your blood pressure. They're a wonderful grain. Next, I'm going to add nuts. I have here almonds and pecans. Almonds and pecans and walnuts, they're all high in magnesium. They also have a good level of, the almonds especially, of vitamin E. Those omega-3 fatty acids are on walnuts. And then next we're going to add flax seeds. Flax seeds are so healthy. They are full of lignans and omega-3s. Also chia seeds are. And then finally some wheat germ. I'm going to give that a stir and set it aside. Meanwhile, I'm going to make some liquid syrup here. We're going to start with some hazelnut oil. Hazelnut oil is a wonderfully toasty tasting oil. It's got a high smoke point. I'm going to melt some of my coconut sugar into the hazelnut oil. Now, coconut sugar is full of minerals. It's a little healthier as far as sugars are concerned. It's a little healthier of all the sugars. I'm also going to add spices. Cinnamon. And cinnamon is a wonderfully pungent, distinctive flavor. Pumpkin pie spice. Pumpkin pie spice is a mixture of nutmeg and cinnamon and allspice. Ginger. Ginger is a wonderful anti-inflammatory, and anything that you can do to bring down your inflammation will really help the onset of heart disease. And then finally, a little bit of salt. With the sugar, you need just a little bit of salt. It's going to kick up the flavors, and that's melting nicely. Meanwhile, while that melts, I'm going to go ahead and cut up some of my sweet potato. Sweet potato is a wonderful vegetable that is full of carotenoids and vitamin A, fiber. I'm going to cut some. I steamed this first. So I put it in a steamer basket, and I like to steam my vegetables because when you boil sweet potatoes, they get really waterlogged. So I'm going to use about, half a cup of sweet potato. I'm going to mash it a little bit with my knife. I'm going to mash it with the potato masher. If I made a big batch, this would go in a food processor, and I would make a very nice puree. So I'm going to put that into my syrup and mix it around. I can actually remove that from the heat now. Boy, I can really smell that sweet potato. Now this hot syrup is going to go over my oat and nut mixture, and I'm going to mix it till it gets all evenly coated. I then need to pop this into the oven and bake it till it's toasty. So I'm mixing this up, and the goal is to get all of the grains of the oats coated with the syrupy sweet potato mixture. Now what really helps bring down the inflammation levels here are the spices. I can't stress enough how much you need to add spice any chance you get to all of your recipes. I'm going to move this over here, bring my cookie sheet over, and turn off my heat. We're going to pour this on a cookie sheet and smooth it out nice and flat and bake it for about 30 to 40 minutes. Now once this is cooked, you can store this in a container, a big Tupperware container, and have it handy for whenever you want to snack on it. It was wonderful with yogurt and, oh gosh, anything, cream cheese, with an apple. And that's it for Lou's granola. I'm going to go ahead and pop this in the oven for 350 degrees for about 30 to 40 minutes. And then I'm going to come back and make duck skewers with cream corn and coleslaw. Now I'm going to make a smoky duck skewer with a curried cream corn and a red Asian coleslaw. I'm going to start out by making the cream corn. It's a lot healthier to make it from scratch at home, and it's really not that hard. First thing I'm going to do is cut a leek. A lot of folks ask me, what is a leek? So I'm going to talk a little bit about what they look like. It's a French onion, and it's got lots of little layers, and they're grown in the dirt, and they get a lot of dirt in between the layers. So you literally, when you cut it open, I split this in half, and then you rinse it under the water and make sure all the layers are clean of sand. Now this one looks pretty good right now, and as you run the water through it, the sand will run right out. So I'm going to go ahead and make some cuts. I like to make some lengthwise cuts because it's already in layers, and then cut crosswise. I'm going to take this leek and saute it in a little bit of avocado oil. Avocado oil is one of my favorite go-tos because it has a very high smoke point. My pan is getting very hot, but I like that because if my pan is hot first before I add the oil isn't heating for a long time and oxidizing and turning into a trans fat. So in goes the oil, rolled around the pan, and I'm going to add my leeks. Back on the flame and give it a stir. Just want to soften them up a little bit. The color starts to brighten up, and I can smell that wonderful onion smell. Next, I've got some chopped jalapeno. That's going to go in and saute with the leeks. Now I'm going to add some corn kernels. The corn is going to go right in over the leeks. Heat it all up, nice and aromatic. I'm going to add sugar, just a tiny bit of sugar, brings out the sweetness of the corn. Corn is pretty sweet, but sometimes during the year you'll get canned corn or frozen corn, and it's not going to be at its peak of its sweetness, unless it was packed frozen fresh. Garlic is a wonderful spice for reducing inflammation. Next comes some fresh basil. Basil and corn just seem to be a wonderful pair of flavors that I love. Very, very common with Thai food. Next, I'm going to add some soy sauce. Just a little bit, and then my curry. And the curry is just a beautiful spice with turmeric that has the curcumin and a whole bevy of other spices that is kind of a proprietary blend wherever you buy your curries from, and a little lime juice. Next is going to be the liquids. I'm going to add some coconut water, and instead of adding pure cream, I like to add coconut water because it's a lot leaner, brings down the cholesterol levels, and you still get a beautiful coconut flavor. And then a little bit of milk. Normally on creamed corn, you might add heavy cream. You really don't need that much. The corn is very creamy itself. Now I'm going to let this come back to a simmer, and I'm going to add half of it to my blender and give it a good puree. That's going to give me a natural thickness with the pureed vegetables rather than having to add some kind of a starch. So this is looking good. Let me get my ladle, take my lid off, and add that to the blender. A little bit of the corn. I like to keep half of the corn whole so that you can always identify what you're eating. Now with hot liquids, we want to vent the top a little bit. You do not want to fill the blender any more than 1/3 full. I'm going to turn this down low and pulse it a little bit. If you don't do this, you're going to explode your liquid all over the ceiling and yourself and the walls. I'm going to give it a little bit more speed. Until that becomes nice and smooth. Let's take a quick look here and see what we got. It smells wonderful. Back into the original pot. I'm going to give it a stir. So I'm going to put this back on the heat, let it simmer a little bit, and then I'm going to make my smoky duck skewers. Now we're going to make some smoky duck skewers. First we're going to take our duck meat and cut it into 1/2 inch cubes. You can get duck meat by cutting it off of your duck that you get frozen in the grocery store, or you can order it online and just get duck breast or duck thighs. There are varying companies out there I recommend, like Maple Leaf Farms, and they make wonderful products that will come right to your door. These are going to be skewered onto some wooden skewers, and I soak them for about 30 minutes before I use them. That way they're not going to burn when you put them on the grill, or if you're going to cook your skewers underneath the broiler. Okay, I'm going to clean off my knife with a sanitary towel and then cut some scallions. I only need about 2 tablespoons. Now I'm going to mix all of my marinade ingredients together. And I start with some hoisin sauce, which is a mixture of, it's like an oriental barbecue sauce. It's got chili peppers, vinegar, and garlic. You can buy that ready to go, ready to make, or ready to use right out of the grocery store. And some chopped garlic. And garlic, again, is one of my favorite vegetables to cook with. It has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties to it. And then ginger, the same thing, just a superstar. Now here's what's going to give us that smoky flavor. So we're not going to smoke on the grill, we're just using the smoked paprika. Next is some red chili flakes, a little kick. Okay, now we're going to add our sesame oil. And finally, one last oil, some almond oil. Almond oil is rich in vitamin E. And we need that oil so that we coat our meat with the base. And of course, I'm going to add that scallion. So that's our basting sauce. Next, I'm going to go ahead and skewer those duck pieces When I put my skewers together, I like to keep it all protein or all vegetables. That way you can control the cooking time better. When you mix the two, you got to make sure that you parboil or blanch your vegetables first, or you partially cook your meat. It's just easier to keep it all meat or all vegetables. Now when I cook my skewers, I'm going to cook them in the house, so I'm going to use a broiler. And when you use a broiler, it's sometimes helpful to take a piece of foil and on the ends of the skewer, just cover it with the foil so you don't burn them. Just lightly lay it over. And you have to remember with heart health that you want to stay away from those saturated fats, so you want to stay with lean proteins. You do not want to leave the skin on the duck. You do not want to use a fatty meat that's high in saturated fats. So the duck is nice and lean. I think I'm going to get partial of a third skewer here. Go ahead and finish that. And then I'm going to go ahead and baste the skewers. So you're going to put as much sauce as you can on. And I'm going to cook it a little bit, and you might want to turn it a few times. The more you turn it, the less you're going to have a chance of any charring to occur, and that creates an environment where you can have heterocyclic amines. Meat protein and sugars are not a friend for cancer-causing elements. I'm going to roll these around. I like to line my cookie sheet with a non-stick type of foil. And there we go. Our skewers are ready to go into the broiler, or you can put them on the grill. If you do cook them on the grill outside, again, I like to stress that you turn them frequently. Keep them away from the heat. You want to cook them on the heat, but you want to stay as far away as you can. And also, because you don't have all that fat from the skin dripping into the heat, you're not going to create those smoke carcinogens. So I'm going to go ahead and get these in the oven, and then we're going to come back and make a delicious veggie burger. Now I'm going to make a heart-healthy veggie burger. I'm going to start by cutting up some vegetables and putting them into my food processor. The vegetables only have to be rough cut because the food processor will do the rest of the work. First, I'm going to cut up a zucchini. Zucchini is one of the few produce items at your grocery store that actually could be GMO, and that's genetically manipulated organism. So you want to make sure that when you buy zucchini, you have a label on it that says that it is certified organic. Everything else is pretty much safe, except for maybe Hawaiian papayas. Next, I'm going to cut a carrot up. Carrots are full of vitamin A and carotenoids. Plus, they taste wonderful, and my horses love them. If I don't have a bag of carrots in my garage and I run out, there's going to be all hell to pay. Next, I'm going to cut some onion up. Onion goes in. Some green peppers next. It has a very distinct flavor, and I know some people say that if there's a little bit of green pepper in something, they know it, and that's what I love about it. Next, I'm going to chop some mushrooms. These are white buttons, and the white button mushrooms are actually my least favorite. I like to use a Japanese mushroom, like a maitake or shiitake mushroom. All the aki mushrooms are your Japanese mushrooms. They are actually the best to use. They actually use shiitake mushrooms for chemotherapy in Japan. And it's a natural chemotherapy. So in go the mushrooms, all rough cut. I'm going to put the lid on the processor and give it a pulse to cut up all those vegetables nice and fine. Not super fine, just enough so that it's beautiful and colorful and makes a size good for a burger blend. I'm going to give it one quick little stir just to get the top to cycle down into the bottom. One last time. And that's it. Next, I'm going to put this into a bowl. And mix in the rest of my ingredients. I love to make veggie burgers and patty them up and put them in the freezer so they're ready to use at a last minute call. You can also grill them away on your grill. You don't have to worry so much about the heterocyclic amines that will form because you're using mostly vegetables. Okay, next, I'm going to add some garlic powder. I'm adding garlic, which is a wonderful spice for a heart-healthy diet. And then I'm going to add some dried mustard. So then I'm going to add a spice mix. And this is sage and thyme and cayenne pepper and chili pepper flakes, all kinds of flavorings. Next is omega-3 rich walnuts. And they've been chopped, and rolled oats. And these help lower your blood pressure and are great for lowering cholesterol. I'm going to break an egg in here. And then add some brown rice. Whole grain, of course. Last but not least is going to be some wheat germ. Now I'm going to give this a mix with my hands because I really need to know what it feels like. I judge a lot by the moisture, and if I need to add some more liquid or if it's a little too loose, I'll add some breadcrumbs. And I think that I'm going to add a little breadcrumb to this. Otherwise, your burgers might fall apart when you try to saute them in the pan. Now, if they're too dry, you'll add another egg. I think just a little more breadcrumbs. Again, it's all about touch and feel and look and smell, all those senses when you cook. Okay, so that is nice and mixed. And now I'm going to add some oil to my pan, and my pan has been slowly heating. So my oil is going to be ready to spread and coat the bottom of that pan. Nice swirl. I'm going to make my patties into a slider size. I almost always do. Somehow you feel like you're eating more if you have 2 sliders versus 1 big hamburger. It's just more satisfying. We're going to let these cook until they're golden on one side. We're going to flip them. We want to cook them just long enough for the vegetables to get cooked all the way through and the outside to be golden brown. Okay, I'm going to let those cook now for a while till they get soft all the way through and they're golden brown on each side. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to plate and present all 3 of our dishes. Now we have all 3 recipes. I first made Lou's granola, which is high in fiber and has lots of anti-inflammatory spices. Next we made smoky duck skewers on a cream corn curry and an Asian red slaw. And finally we ended with a veggie burger. You can top that with anything your creative mind comes up with. And I like to use feta cheese and grilled zucchini. There are 2 diets that you want to focus on. Eat a Mediterranean or an anti-inflammatory diet, and you're going to make your heart healthy and happy. I'm Chef Kelly York. This is Therapeutic Cuisine. And as the father of medicine, Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food. We'll see you next time.